DJ and PK reminding you to join Scotty G and the coach, Tim Lacombe, Monday at RGS Exteriors, 4235 Farm Road in West Jordan. That is coming up. Right now, it is time for us to talk NBA playoff basketball and NBA draft lottery. We're joined right now by Nathan Grubel from No Ceilings NBA, covering the NBA and the NBA draft. Nathan, good morning.
Good morning. How are we doing, everyone? It's a fabulous day, best time of the year, NBA playoffs, the draft lotteries right around the corner on Mother's Day. A lot going on. I'm excited.
There are a lot of moms who are Jazz fans who want the Jazz to get the number one pick. I think it's a foregone conclusion that the Jazz would take A.J. Dybantsa with the top pick. We'll find out if they throw us a curveball. Do you think it's a foregone conclusion that everybody would take A.J. Dybantsa with the number one pick? Or is there a club out there that would go in a different direction?
So I do think at this point I would be stunned if AJ did not go number one overall in the draft, with really any team picking in that spot, primarily because of just what he offers you in terms of a safety net, right? A 6'9" jumbo wing, can create off the dribble, can hit jump shots over anybody, has the ability to, along with being coached up, defend multiple positions. The passing really improved. He can play out of the mid-post, can post up mismatches. Really a lot of the things that we're seeing come to light in playoff basketball in terms of being able to attack someone off the dribble one-on-one, take advantage of mismatches, get the ball to where it needs to go in terms of kickouts if defenses rotate over double. AJ is capable of doing all of those things on offense with the ball in his hands, and it's why he's been projected to have this superstar ceiling that he does. So there's a lot of talented prospects at the top. I don't think the top four prospects have been fully solidified yet in terms of order and where we think they're going to go. But I do think at number one, I think A.J. Dybantsa is probably the safest pick anyone can make at the top.
Yeah, I like how you choose the word safest. I'm wondering what you think the gap is. Now, you go back a couple years, when Bayama to number two, it was overwhelming. And I think that guys showed a little bit more than maybe we expected, particularly Knipple, but there was no doubt that Cooper Flagg was the guy. And so you wouldn't say, well, Cooper Flagg is the safest. You wouldn't say Bayama is the safest, but you chose that word, and I believe you used that word on purpose. So the point would be lead to a question, the gap between Dybantsa and the other guys.
I'm glad you called me out on that, because that's a great talking point to be able to discuss with some of these other players. I mean, listen, at the top of my personal draft board from the start of this cycle in the preseason to where we're at now, I have not moved Cameron Boozer off of that spot at number one on my board from Duke, the 6'9" forward. He's the most accomplished and decorated domestic prospect that we've seen in a long, long time. There isn't a player who has a resume comparable to his, including this year in college, pre-draft, since what Luka Doncic did overseas about 7-8 years ago. So this is a rarefied prospect who checks so many different boxes on the offensive end. You can utilize him in any blend of actions that you want to. He can be an on-ball facilitator. He can be a screener. He can be a roller, short roll playmaker. You can spot him up behind the three-point line, has a great catch and shoot 40%, three-point jump shot ready to go. He can be an interior post-up threat who draws a double team, and he has arguably the best passing instincts and passing placement versatility of any of these top prospects that we can discuss in this class. The difference between someone like an AJ versus someone like Cam, you do have some of those athletic concerns with Cam that show up on the defensive end. If he has to cover a lot of ground and really do a hard closeout on a shooter, he opens up those driving lanes where you can get by him. If you have to play Cam in a small ball five capacity rather than utilizing him as a bigger wing or a power forward, his more natural set of positions, he can get eaten up by some of those bigger fives and certainly some of what we would see in the NBA with 7-foot-plus guys. You can score over him in the post. So there are some defensive limitations to Cam's game, but it's not from a lack of understanding, a lack of mental processing, cerebral ability. His mind is his superpower, and then you layer in how skilled he is as a ball handler, ambidextrous, can finish with both hands, can pass with both hands. His footwork, he has such command over what he wants to do. And the best part about it is, like I said, because of his mind being a superpower, he can go 2 to 3 steps ahead of the defense and know what he wants to do before they even have time to react. So Cameron Boozer, for my money, has still been the number one player on my personal board. But again, in my position, I'm not working for an NBA team. I'm only able to play as much armchair GM as I can, understanding full and well that the safest option for GMs at the top would be to take the guy in A.J. Dybantsa, who has incredible upside in his own right.
The Jazz are tanking for a long time, so people have had a long time to study these draft boards. And the top three, you're right, the order has changed. You mentioned that and pointed that out. Even now it's not locked down. But the top three separated very early on, and that didn't change. Now, as the season went along, Caleb Wilson raised his stock. Darius Acuff Jr. raised his stock, and there are actually a lot of lead guard, point guard, ball handling guards who are in that next group and might just go 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm curious if you think Wilson can crack the top three, or does his three-point shooting limit him, or could Acuff crack the top three, or does the fact that he's 6'3" and seems to be a defensive liability going to limit him to being drafted 4, 5, 6?
I don't foresee a scenario in which Acuff would crack into that top three. I think his ceiling in terms of where he would be drafted likely falls around that 4 or 5 spot. Caleb Wilson is a different conversation. However, I would not rule out Caleb Wilson even being the second prospect off the board in this draft. We've already heard a lot of buzz, internally from different teams and scouts and sources about, Caleb Wilson being ranked as high as 2 or 3 on different boards within front offices. I buy that smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire. I buy it on this one. Caleb Wilson, incredibly talented, 6'9" forward, arguably the best athlete in this draft class. And a lot of his athleticism fueled those highlight reels and what casual fans might know about his game right now. But if you study more of his tape and what he was able to accomplish in North Carolina, you saw some skill emerging closer to what you would have seen in flashes at the high school level. You saw some of the footwork in the post and being able to create his own shot on a fadeaway, being able to get to his own mid-range shot off the dribble. The passing ability from a standstill really popped in a lot of high-low actions with Henry Vasar at North Carolina. His versatility, the fact that he's only scratching the surface of how good he can be, to where if he rounds out some of these other areas, you know what he can do as a defensive playmaker, was a beast on the glass on both ends of the floor. If he gets that three-point shot to come around, all of a sudden we're talking about a more complete prospect than people wanted to give him credit for in that 6'9" forward athletic package, playing a position in an archetype that we're seeing become more and more important in playoff basketball, having 4 guys around one big who can all dribble, pass, shoot, create. We're seeing that from Caleb Wilson. I think because of that, being wrapped into that athletic package, I think teams could talk themselves into Caleb Wilson being higher and going higher than he's currently at 4 on a lot of consensus boards.
Speaking of Boozer and Dybantsa, three-point shooting is paramount in this league. I'm not sure both of those guys, that's their strongest skill set, although you can improve to a degree. What do you think about their ability to step out behind the line?
I think Boozer 100% is a much more ready-made and confident shooter from three-point range than AJ is right now. I mean, Cameron Boozer, going back to his high school days in these last 2 years of high school and then through this year at Duke, he's been a 38 to 40% three-point shooter off the catch. Has even gotten more comfortable with taking some of those three-point shots off the dribble. I trust Cam Boozer as a floor spacer, as a pick-and-pop guy, as a catch-and-shoot guy. Right now, that's been a weakness for A.J. Dybantsa, but what A.J. Dybantsa has that Cameron Boozer doesn't have right now is when you take that 1 to 2 step inside the arc and you're looking at more of those pull-up 2-point contested jumpers, A.J. has that in his game right now. He can get those shots off whenever he wants. We didn't see a lot of mid-range versatility from Cameron Boozer at Duke. We saw more of it at the high school level. There's plenty of clips that you can find of Cameron Boozer getting into mid-range pull-ups when he was about 10 to 15 pounds lighter in high school. And I think that in order for Cam to maximize the rest of that skill set and really tie everything together from a star perspective, he's going to have to figure out how to get into those shots easier at the NBA level. Might require him, dropping a little bit of the weight that he put on in order to get a little bit more flexible, a little bit more comfortable getting into those pull-up shots. But I'd say that's a key advantage for AJ right now, even though I have Cam as the more trustworthy spot-up shooter from three-point range.
If the world were like a Sleep Number mattress, everything would adapt for your comfort. Because as your life changes and your body changes, Sleep Number mattresses adapt and shift to give you personalized comfort night after night. And now everything's on sale during our Memorial Day event. Save up to $1,200 on mattresses for a limited time. To experience a whole new world of comfort, visit a Sleep Number store or go to sleepnumber.com. Sleep Number, to a good life sleep.
So we've talked about the top 5, and basically where the Jazz landed, it's a coin flip. It is just slightly better odds they'll draft top 5 than draft 6, 7, 8. But there are a lot of Jazz fans who think they never catch a break. They're not going to catch a break now. The league's mad at them, and they're going to draft 6, 7, 8. It's doom and gloom for the Sunday draft lottery. It's bad mood for Mother's Day. If they draft 6, 7, 8, you've just listed 5 prospects. How confident are you those are the top 5? And who would the Jazz be looking at if they're drafting 6th or 7th? How do those guys sort themselves out? And do you have any idea which way the Jazz might be leaning in that group if that's where they end up?
I think if the Jazz are not able to land one of the top 4 prospects that we can discuss is Dybantsa, Darren Peterson, Cameron Boozer, Caleb Wilson, that their next target should be Keaton Wagler out of Illinois. And the reason why I bring him up over someone like an Acuff or a Michael Brown or any one of these other point guards that we can talk about in this race, like a Kingston Flemings, I bring up Wagler, and I'll even throw Brayton Burries out of Arizona in the conversation as well. But Wagler in particular, from where he came from in terms of not being a consensus RSCI top 150 recruit to leading an Illinois team all the way to the Final Four, playing his best at the highest levels of competition and really not seeing any fall off in terms of his production in the regular season versus what he did in the postseason. We would expect a lot of these freshmen to play worse and overall have a worse resume in postseason play in the NCAA tournament rather than what they did in the regular season. You didn't see that fall off from Wagler. He's a 6'6" guard, so plus size at that position, can toggle between the 1 and the 2, is an awesome catch and shoot guy, has real range on his pull-up three-point shot. That's an NBA-ready move for him to be able to go to. Tremendous footwork when he's navigating ball screens, getting through traffic, can find guys on the move as a legitimate live dribble passer. He has such a well-refined game that can fit with another backcourt option. I think with the Utah Jazz, there's going to be other questions they have to ask and answer on around other parts of their roster based on the Jaren Jackson acquisition. What does that mean for that 3 spot? Is it Lauri Markkanen? Do they maybe move off of him to bring other assets back? Is that Ace's spot? Do they want to play Ace at shooting guard? There's a lot of other places where there's questions about on this roster. But one thing I thought the Jazz really figured out was Keontae George operating as the point guard. And in my opinion, he didn't even have his best weapon available to him this year in terms of efficiency, which is what I know him for, that pull-up three-point shot. He expanded and grew his game in so many other areas that are actually dependent upon him playing that point guard position, like attacking the basket, getting to the rim, having a free throw rate that's considerably higher than any other point in his career, continuing to grow since he came into the NBA as a passer. I think this team is best with him operating at that point guard position. And so you want someone next to him who is a little bit bigger, who ideally in time can cover multiple positions or cover the other backcourt spot that you wouldn't want Keontae covering. So I look for someone like a Keaton Wagler or a Brayton Burries if the Jazz fell out of that top 4, top 5 group.
We saw a kid last year, Yegor Dillman from Russia, come over and obviously played at BYU and now is with Brooklyn. And the idea is to get your so-called feet wet, to use that expression, in the college game and then go on to the NBA. With NIL, are you going to see that more often? Are we going to see foreign kids look to get a season under their belt in the college game, knowing that they can make some money, and then go on to the NBA? You think that's going to be a trend?
That's absolutely a trend. And I do think it's a great thing for, NBA-based scouts to be able to see these kids, in domestic leagues in college here versus overseas, where they're constantly having to travel and have to evaluate the leagues that these guys are playing in, whether it's a junior league or maybe they're not getting as much time. It's more limited time in a senior league overseas, trying to evaluate these different landscapes of they're playing this group of players. How do I evaluate them in this setting versus, NBA scouts have figured out pretty well how to evaluate players in the college setting. And so having them over here is a major benefit to NBA front offices and scouting departments. Well, it's also a benefit for those players because they're able to not only earn more money through an NIL deal than they're likely getting, in one of these overseas markets, but they're also getting the playing time like I was talking about, right? These more senior teams, these A-League teams over whether it's Spain or Turkey or whatever other league you want to point to overseas, they're not always giving these young players time on the court. You're seeing some of these prospects average like 10, 12, 14 minutes per game, not playing a lot, whereas in college, teams are building and making them a focal point in their systems, playing these players 25, 30, 35 minutes a night, sometimes even the more extreme 38 to 40 minutes a night. So they're getting more exposure, they're getting more money, and you're making it easier overall to level the playing field and make sure that the NBA scouts and talent evaluators have the best possible setting to evaluate these players in. So I think it's a win for all parties.
Nathan Grubel joining us, covers the NBA and the NBA draft for No Ceilings NBA. As the playoffs continue here, you looking at the Thunder thinking they are going to repeat, which it's been a little less than a decade since that's happened, or you got your eye on somebody else to take them down?
So my preseason NBA Finals pick was the Oklahoma City Thunder and the New York Knicks matching up. And I see no reason right now to move off of that pick. When we talk about who's the favorite to actually win the championship, I would agree. I think OKC is the clear-cut dog above everyone else. And you see what they did to the Lakers last night. This is without Jalen Williams in the lineup. They're essentially playing two guards with SGA and AJ Mitchell, and they still have the versatility on defense to pressure the ball, to force players into bad shots, to make life really difficult, force turnovers, and capitalize on that transition play to get into some early offense, to set up easy buckets. And then when things do come down to crunch time in that half-court setting, you have who is the best half-court scorer right now in the game, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to deliver at home. So I think the OKC Thunder are a clear-cut above everyone else, and I really appreciate the opportunity because of Jalen Williams being out. They're going to need him to come back. They're going to need him for these later rounds for the conference finals and for the finals. But as of right now against this Lakers team, AJ Mitchell's getting some great experience in that starting shooting guard spot, and you're seeing a lot of offensive opportunities open up because you have two primary ball handlers next to each other in SGA and Mitchell. I think he's getting a lot of great experience right now. You still have guys like, Casey Wallace and Caruso and McCain able to come off the bench. That two big lineup with a lot of this guard versatility, the on-ball pressure defensively, it's overwhelming, and it's just a lot for other teams to deal with. So I would expect OKC, as of right now, to still be the favorite and to hoist up that trophy when it's all said and done.
For the team who drafts Darren Peterson, how much work is going to have to be done off the court versus on the court?
So I'm not of the mindset that Darren Peterson has any off-court issues at all when it comes to his work ethic, his drive, his demeanor, his willingness, and that competitive spirit to improve and get better. I'm not concerned about any of that with Darren. Obviously, there's medical questions that have lingered and are still lingering that will have to be answered. I will not be privy to that information because I do not work for an NBA team. I may hear some things through the grapevine, but as of right now, my evaluation for Darren has to be what I've seen on the court and comparing that to where he was at in high school versus where he is at now. And who Darren is as a plus size 6'5", 6'6" shooting guard, awesome athleticism when he's healthy, the ability to get to his shot whenever he wants, ridiculous efficient shooter on incredibly high volume at Kansas, which matches what he was able to do at the high school level. My biggest concern for Darren stems on the court in terms of his on-ball playmaking ability. When he's involved in a lot of these ball screen actions in high school, he had that burst, that extra step, because he was fully healthy. He didn't have any of these lingering issues to where he could always get by that defender at the top in that ball screen action. He'd take that wide angle and he'd be able to score, or he'd have a much easier passing lane to be able to look through to thread that needle to get the ball where it needed to go next. We were not able to see him create that same level of separation in Kansas this year in college. And so a lot of that diminished his playmaking value and his ability to pressure the rim severely. It turned him into primarily a jump shooter, which, again, he excelled at. He scored at high volume. He scored on ridiculous efficiency. That's not the problem. But in order to play a more ball-dominant role at the next level, it's not just about what you can get for yourself. It's about how you see and map the court, what you can get for everyone else. So because of that limit that I've seen from him right now in those ball screen actions, if that doesn't change, then you're comparing him more to a secondary wing versus a primary creator. And for that reason, it's why, I've been back and forth on where to have Darren on my personal board. Do I have him at 3? Do I maybe even have him at 4 and have Caleb Wilson ahead of him because of where I feel the position of value is with those other guys versus if this is who Darren is, can I find that somewhere else? Can I replicate that value somewhere else? So I think the on-court, on-ball playmaking aspect and the rim pressure, those are the biggest questions that need answers in order to properly identify Darren's upside moving forward.
Nathan, we appreciate all the NBA info. That's a deep dive into the draft there. We appreciate you coming on and talking with us. Enjoy the draft lottery, and let's see where these teams get to pick, because that'll help us sort out where everybody's going. I
appreciate you both for having me. Let's do this again soon.
All right, there is Nathan Grubel covering the NBA and the NBA draft and bringing us a lot of knowledge. You can check him out. He's at No Ceilings NBA.
Hey there, it's Wayfair here, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app, when you spot it, a brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's Room of Choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.